Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Truck going by my. Can you hear that? It's the Prairie Banana over on PulseChain, the chain occupied by pTGC and UFO, the two index tokens that give you exposure to the best assets on PulseChain. No joke. I'm pulling up my phone because we're going to be playing the spaces, the live X spaces on my phone, and you guys can ask any questions that you may have in the chat. If you guys could let me know, I've done a little bit of rearranging of my office. If you could let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be much appreciated. You guys can do that while I'm pulling up spaces. Okay, we got it. Here's the trash. I set my phone on the trash can. Get set up. Good morning, Walter. Good morning. I want to turn those blinds. Let's see if the pTGC Yoda is in the house. Let's see. Not yet. Businessman with a family and crypto founder. You think the guy's a little busy? Good morning, George Reed. Good morning. It's good to see you guys. David, crypto loser. Crypto loser. You, dude, I would not call myself a crypto loser. And if you hold pTGC, that is not true. That is not true. Let's go join. It's being recorded. Okay. We're used to that. Good morning. I got my volume up. You guys can always let me know if it's not loud enough or anything. Good morning.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you doing, man?
Cool. Another day.
Yeah. Yes.
What about you?
I made it up to the mine and back this morning. Every Saturday morning I call it a country drive. It's about it's about a 40-mile drive. 30 miles of it is gravel and winding up into the mountains, up to this big old pit. It's a pit mine that they've been mining for probably 40 plus years. And they last summer they hired a contractor to go in and find more ore deposits. And this contractor has been completely changing the landscape of that mine. I mean, they brought in a very large shovel and about 6 very large dump trucks, and they've been working 24/7. I'm not kidding, like round the clock, all week long. They got all the lights up there at night, and it's cool to go up there at night because they have all the lights, and they're just down there digging and loading, and they take the waste around to the other side of this big old pit, and they've been building a mountain of, I don't know what they call it, the waste, and it's all orchestrated, very well laid out, and it's impressive how much earth they've been able to move. And I guess it'd probably been about 10 months now that they've been doing that. But that's what I get to do every Saturday morning. I always take a second on the way out, and I pull over to the side of the road and I look down inside that pit and just kind of get an idea of the progress, you know. But anyhow, so that's what I do every Saturday morning before I come home and jump on spaces. But it's fun, man.
Are you going up there specifically just to check that out, or do you have
another reason? Yeah, good question. I have a small business. I'm a building service contractor, so I go up there and service their trailer. They got a trailer up there, and it just needs to be serviced once a week.
Oh, nice.
So,
yeah, so you're making the trip and you get to see some of them making money.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's nice that it gets me out of the office. I just go up there with a mug of coffee, listen to some PulseChain, whatever on YouTube, and just have a good time. That's my country drive. I look forward to it every week.
30 miles of gravel, windy road sounds like it would take a while.
It does, especially if it has been snowing or raining, because there are parts of the road that have a lot of clay on them. I've ran off the road twice, literally just driving. And one time for sure, I was driving very slow and careful. I still went sideways and rammed into the side of the road. Another time I was coming out and I literally just drove off the road. Yeah, just slid off the road. I maintained control. I maintained directional control of my pickup, except that I went off the road, and I managed to not run over a badger hole or hit a stone or run into a fence, and I just eased my pickup right back onto the road. And that drive has been responsible for a lot of repairs on my pickup.
Is it bumpy or is it pretty smooth?
It's it can be washboardy at times if they haven't serviced it in a while, and it's very bumpy.
That'll wear your truck out for sure.
Thousands of I went down to the mechanic one time because my transmission was acting up, and they're like, okay, this is going to be expensive. So me and the mechanic had a conversation, and they're like, well, we've already replaced practically everything on your pickup. So except for the transmission, you have a brand new pickup. And I was like, okay, we're replacing it. Because we were deciding whether to wreck the truck or just replace the transmission.
Yeah.
So anyhow, yeah. Well, how are you doing, man?
Another day. Nothing too new.
Well, Shaka filled me in on what the waste is called. It's called tailings. He's right. I've heard that term before. That's true. George Reed says pTGC is the only good thing on PulseChain. I have a good sized bag, but one thing bothers me. It says, he says, pTGC has great tokenomics, but no use case like BitTensor. I don't know anything about BitTensor, George. Good morning, Dickie. Do you know anything about it?
I don't know either. I've never heard of it, to be honest.
I have heard of it. Let me no use case. Store of value, George. Store of value that pays APY. That's what pTGC is to me. What else can it do?
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct, Banana. The use case is obviously a place to store value, to have good price appreciation with the code of the protocol reinforcing the project over long periods of time. When you look at other places to put value in, a lot of them don't have reinforcing mechanics, almost solidifying your long-term investment. And pTGC, I think, stands out in that category. And then as far as if he means more like utility based, it doesn't have a utility, like something that's generating revenue off of a user using this or using that. Our utility is based on more the arbitrage spots. We're not relying on a user using a product, but more supplying liquidity for arbitrage spots to trade and us generating revenue off of that to generate an income for the community. And, today's a great example. We added another $15,000 with Ethereum, enlarging that pair to generate more revenue and keep that flywheel going.
Okay. All right. Well, that's news. When I was thinking of utility, when you were talking about it, what came to mind to me was XRP. Like XRP is it's almost like a real world asset that banks are going to be using it. I don't know much about XRP, but my understanding is that the banking system is going to run on XRP. That sounds like real world value to me. And Tensor
Right.
Tau. Sorry, were you talking?
You can go.
Okay. BitTensor Tau is an open source decentralized blockchain protocol designed to create a peer-to-peer marketplace for machine intelligence and artificial intelligence. It incentivizes participants to collaboratively build, share, and improve AI models and related digital commodities like compute, data, and predictions in a trustless, market-driven way, essentially aiming to decentralized AI development away from big tech companies. Okay.
So is this a project, a blockchain itself, or what blockchain is this on?
It's its own blockchain, from what I understand. The core concept: think of BitTensor as a decentralized global brain. I can't believe I've heard of this. It sounds relatively new. Neurons equal individual machine learning models or nodes run by participants worldwide. These models compete and collaborate on tasks, with the best ones rewarded. It uses crypto economic incentives via its native token, Tau, T-A-O, to value and reward useful intelligence, similar to how financial markets price assets. Cool. I like my pTGC. It sounds cool, man. I mean,
in this industry, right, it's very similar to IRL stocks, right? There's so many different utilities and niches out there, and use cases, etc. There isn't just one. And in cryptocurrency, there's the same thing. Like there's a place for a gas token. There's a place for a store value system that operates in this specific way. There's also a use case for like a hex, an inflationary system where users don't like fees, where a lot of people in the pTGC community don't mind the fee to enter and exit because they see the value there. So how I look at cryptocurrency as a whole, like there's so many different pieces of this entire pie, and there's a place for a lot of different types of protocols. I think the important thing is like, as a cryptocurrency community as a whole, we have to get better about like finding the legitimate good projects and not giving the nonsense a time of day, because most of it is nonsense. And every time it gets given time of day, it pretty much extracts value from the entire system. So, to what that is, as long as it's a good project and it has good intentions and people are actually using it, it sounds like there needs to be users using it, especially with a blockchain. That's very, very important. And hopefully they're getting good adoption with all that. But there's a use case for what they're doing, and then there's a use case for what we're doing. One of the best use cases for cryptocurrency is store value. That's where it's succeeded completely to date. So I think by us using what it's been proven to do, but enhancing the features to make it hopefully a better store of value in specific protocols, our niche is a very, very strong one. Plus, when you look at the finance sector, the majority of the finance sector, like the items that are very, very large, people are using those also as store values, right? Like, for example, pretty much the entire stock market, people are not putting a lot of value in those things because they truly love the product, but more because they want to store value in there and just have price appreciation over time.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to BitTensor Tau. I'm not sure that we need to spend a lot of time on it.
I recognize that ticker now. I didn't know that was the ticker. TAO.
Yeah.
But happy to have him in here. Glad he's diversified in PulseChain and Tau.
Yeah. Interesting. Somebody followed me yesterday. I don't remember his name, but whenever somebody follows me on X, and by the way, if you follow me on X, you can even reach out if I don't follow you back. But usually what I do is I follow people if they got pTGC or PulseChain or Hex in their description, I will follow them right back. And this guy, I think he did, but I looked at his profile as I often do, and he has like over 3,000 followers on Twitter, and he's a musician. I think he plays country music. He plays guitar and I think a couple other instruments, and he's a singer. And so I followed him right back. But this guy just out of the blue follows me on X. And then and I looked at his profile, and in the past, he has not, I think his most recent crypto post was either months ago or years ago. But he might be like coming back to crypto, perhaps maybe he's just coming back around to it after an absence. But either way, he follows me on X out of the blue. I'm like, okay, did he somehow just come across maybe one of my YouTube videos or just find me on X? Does he know anything about pTGC? Then I didn't know. So I pitched him on it. I'm like, I should get my eyes on the tweet, but I'm like, hey, I noticed you followed me on X, and I just wanted to check in and see, have you heard about pTGC? Have you taken a position? And I screenshot it over to you because it was, and I haven't heard back from him yet, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm like opening it up to, like, you can just direct message people on Twitter and on Telegram, and just reach out and say, hey, I remember when I told him, I said, I care a lot about crypto and a lot about people. And I just wanted to see if you have taken a position in pTGC. And hopefully he does. I mean, I genuinely want him to take a position for his family's sake. He's got a young family.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if he's genuinely trying to learn about pTGC or if he's on PulseChain and trying to follow people. Like, does he have any mutual followers with you?
I'm sure I looked at that, but I didn't quite notice. But that's another thing. That's another reason I reached out to him. I'm like, okay, he might be curious about pTGC. He might be confused about it. So I opened.
Also, if he's a musician, he might be just trying to promote his musical perfection. So you have to think about that too. He might go around following people who have like the good size of followers. Like, I think both my account and your account is like a good size to where you can tell it's very organic and not botted. Like, you gain those followers just one by one by one by one. And even for us, looking outwards for like people we want to be onboarding and interacting with, like that 2,000 to 5,000 range or 2,000 to 10,000 range, I think it's just a really good amount of followers to kind of look out for, to where they have an influence, but they're not like an influencer, right? Like, that's not their career, is just charging people to post stuff on their timeline, and it's just nonsense at a certain point. But people who have a community, have an influence, but very picky about what they're putting out and what they're talking about. And that's, I think, who we need to look for. Maybe that's who he's looking for in general too. Yeah. More for the promotion of his own music.
Yep. It might be. But I opened it up. I'm like, if you got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So we'll see what he says.
You're doing that, and then next thing you know, you onboard him.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It does happen. I want to get to a couple of questions in YouTube here. Dickie asks, do you think we will be able to borrow from pTGC in the future?
Really, anyone could build a protocol like that. There's just going to be the fee involved if doing so, right? So you'd have to be willing to kind of give up a fee, and whoever, if someone was to build that, they'd have to incorporate that in. But I'd say anything is possible. Personally, that's not like a top priority to me because I'm not really a big giving up custody and taking loans on it kind of person. I think by people storing it in their own wallet and then earning off of what they have stored due to the specific sign or design of the system is, I hope, the best solution and safest solution for users. But who knows? If this protocol gets as big as we believe it will, I'm sure there'll be a line of projects building interesting things for pTGC. We just, as a community, need to be careful what we interact with, and by giving up custody of things like that, the contracts and stuff like that you've seen on Ethereum, that stuff gets hacked all the time. But as time progresses, I bet the stuff will become more secure and battle tested, so on and so forth.
And then George Reed asks, he asked another, same gentleman. Thank you for the questions. We appreciate them. Oh, no, this is different. Yeah, I just had it pulled up on the screen. George Reed asks, PulseChain was built for ETH fees. No, hold it. He says PulseChain was built for high ETH fees. Now, ETH fees are pennies. It's a good point. I've heard about that. What is PulseChain's use case now? He raises a good point.
Yeah, I definitely say this is one of the reasons why PulseChain's been struggling. One of the main use cases of it has been pretty much eliminated. When PulseChain was invented, it was almost impossible to even interact with DeFi. It was pretty much impossible to interact with DeFi. And it gave a huge product market fit to PulseChain. And then ever since PulseChain came out, obviously Ethereum worked on fixing it, and it is pretty much fixed at this point. Obviously, the fees are still higher than what we have here. But if that was the only use case of PulseChain, pretty much even no other blockchain would need to exist, right? Other blockchains are quicker, are faster, are cheaper. PulseChain technically is faster and cheaper, even though it kind of runs a little boggy because of validators not being as good and stuff like that. But what I think it presents for people now is a new opportunity, right? And there is value in opportunity. The opportunity to build a new city with a new structure at the low prices of the blockchain. You're not building on Ethereum at $2,000 where a lot of the infrastructure is already built. And if you were to build a protocol, most likely it'd be more on the outside of the city because all of that prime real estate was built 7 years ago. The large DeFi protocols and stuff on Ethereum that own so much of the supply and have it in LP and so on and so forth. What PulseChain for me also represents is a fresh opportunity to get some of that front property on the main street and be able to start from scratch and build our own ecosystem with our own tools and our own ideas that possibly could be even better than Ethereum. I personally don't know of a DeFi protocol that acts as a really good store value system on Ethereum today. I think Hex was aiming to be that. Obviously, the community and the code got brought here to PulseChain, and Richard's made it pretty clear that the Hex on here is what he believes to be the main Hex now. But I think what we're kind of aiming for is, there's other ways to do this, and we're trying to succeed in this realm. And by building here on PulseChain early, it could amplify our success and our growth by so much in the future. And it doesn't mean that We don't want to have pairings with ETH. You know, there's obviously value in the legacy and the legitimacy and the fact that governments and banks are already buying this stuff. But I do think there's also opportunity in the fact that you can be built on something so undervalued that it can actually revalue your whole entire system with a matter of one good bull market.
Well, there you go, George. Yeah, I think this is my opinion, that PulseChain has a lot to offer that Ethereum doesn't. One thing that comes to mind is the founder of PulseChain doesn't sell his tokens. And I've heard of the Ethereum Foundation or whoever it is sells Ethereum. And I think they just recently sold like quite a lot of Ethereum. But that hasn't happened yet over on PulseChain.
Yeah, I think it's the overhead cost of Ethereum as being pioneers constantly obviously costs money. And that's, I believe, the majority of what that foundation is paid for. They have hundreds and hundreds of developers constantly working on being a leader in this space.
Right.
Where PulseChain gets to reap the benefits of just kind of adopting everything that they put out and actually letting it be tested first instead of doing live testing on its own blockchain. Ethereum has to do that live testing. And obviously that costs money to be constantly pushing out innovation and live testing. You need to have a lot of people on payroll. Running PulseChain isn't free either. Like, we have to understand that running a blockchain probably costs a ton of money. But as far as we can tell, as far as known wallets, it doesn't look like the founder has ever sold anything of PulseChain to pay for the overhead of running a blockchain.
Yep. There are advantages to being over on PulseChain.
Yeah, another big advantage is just it's risk, right? So everyone has to have their own risk tolerance. But Ethereum, Bitcoin, right? Richard recently made a big post about this. Like, I actually love these two posts. These protocols are so massive that it takes billions and billions and billions of dollars to move them up just percentages, right? To where if $1 billion is brought into PulseChain, just one, it's life-changing for a lot of the community members here. Like, legitimately life-changing, and it's life-changing for protocols that are built here. As far as a PulseChain community member, us, even though we're more specific to pTGC, our goal is to keep marketing and keep onboarding and to bring in that $1 billion one user at a time. Ethereum needs to bring billions and billions and billions in to make new all-time highs, to where our cup is so much smaller, right? So it's so much easier to fill. Obviously, that brings on risk. But I think, again, like, what's the use case? I think, a lot of people are in cryptocurrency to change their lives, to make value. And even though that hasn't played out to date, I think we have that opportunity here to truly change our lives and to be early to a cryptocurrency instead of buying 10 years after it was launched, like Ethereum or Bitcoin.
Wow. George Reed says that XRP sells 1 billion tokens per month just to pay the bills. Crypto Durgan says
most cryptocurrency, most blockchains have extreme overhead, right? And Richard's been really good about, I believe, about like trimming the fat off, like just kind of like a business, right? You can look at the overhead of any business and start trimming the fat off. I think Richard is very, very good at keeping costs down. This is one thing I think that will make pTGC very successful too, as far as being a product on a blockchain that we don't have upkeep on. Luckily, like, that's a benefit of just being a token on a blockchain, is everything that we're generating, we get to use to actually increase the value of the protocol. We don't have upkeep to pay for, overhead or buildings or devs that we have to constantly be paying because it's already finished, decentralized, automated code.
Yeah.
That doesn't
CryptoDurgan.
mean like people aren't deving stuff and building stuff, like community members and stuff. But as far as like the code of pTGC, what we're building around, it's all finished and complete.
Yep, it's done. CryptoDurgan says, "Good morning. Thank you for streaming." Well, thank you for thanking us. I appreciate that. We do. We appreciate that, CryptoDurgan. And then Dickie asks, Dickie. When PulseChain has its time, what do you personally think that the X multiplier will be? And I asked Dickie, how many X's do you think PulseChain will do? Because that's going to be, foundational. Does anybody have a consensus? Is there a consensus on the outlook for PulseChain as far as how many X's it can do?
Is that in like the first revaluation, or is he talking about like 10 years out what we think this can do?
Now there's a good question.
I think those are two different things. I think there's like the revaluation period that we can get this bull run, and then there's also the question like, where do you think PulseChain can be long term? I feel like right now a lot of people are looking at the short term, like, hey, what can we get out of this bull market? Like, I want some gains, and I 100% get that, right? Like, alt tokens have been in a bear market for pretty much a year and a half now. So a lot of people in cryptocurrency that are heavily alt or heavily alt blockchains like PulseChain are saying, hey, we want some gains. Like, what are we going to get this coming bull market? But I also think we need to ask ourselves, like, if we get some of those gains, like, I personally think there's a lot of value in PulseChain long term because of the network effect, the amount of users that are actually here willing to work for PulseChain. A lot of them a little bit dormant right now, 100%. But on the turnaround, I think that there's a massive community ready to wake up, larger than some of the, the larger blockchains out there that are top 50 cryptocurrencies.
Yep. I think there's a lot of juice in PulseChain.
Yeah, so what we can get out of this cycle, I personally believe that PulseChain has the potential to easily break through its all-time highs, right? Which, from where we are right now, I think, what is that? 30x, maybe 40x, the highs that it made right when it launched. So, I think technically we could very easily see 30, 40, 50x from levels we are today. But you have to also consider that then there comes bear markets and it might come back to certain levels. Like maybe it goes all the way up 50x and then comes back down 50% or 70% or 80%. But then that creates a new floor and then you move up from that floor, just like how we have kind of created this floor around the 20 mil market cap range. And our goal is to go and make new all-time highs this coming cycle.
Yeah, I think PulseChain is, about 23x from its all-time high. It's in that range. George Reed.
Go ahead.
George Reed asks, years ago, devs were building on PulseChain. Are any developers building anything new on PulseChain? Yes. Are the PulseChain developers building anything? I don't know. I would suppose they're both probably maintaining and building things, but there are a lot of other developers. That might be overstating it. There are developers developing things on PulseChain constantly. I mean, Liberty Swap is a good example of that. And if you don't follow them on X, give them a follow on X, look them up, go to libertyswap.finance, check out that protocol. Liberty Swap is probably the most well-known developer on PulseChain, probably the most prolific, if that's the right term. They developed a lot of stuff on PulseChain in a short time. They've only been public at least for maybe 15 months, and they're cranking out a lot of high quality products, but they're not the only ones developing stuff on PulseChain.
Yeah, the two things that I'm excited for is what Liberty Swap has been putting out. They're more infrastructure based, not token based, which I think personally I rather see more infrastructure stuff than just more tokens, more tokens, more tokens. Because yes, when you look on other blockchains, there's maybe a bunch of devs working, but majority of those devs aren't launching successful projects, right? A very large percentage of those devs are just launching tokens that die a month later. And that's not what we need right now. We need good infrastructure. We need tech that's not really been seen before or done before, stuff that stands out, stuff we can use to onboard, stuff we can use to get serious gains in this coming bull market, because serious gains are what we can use to onboard. For example, if the general crypto market's up, let's say 5x, and alts on other chains are up 20x, but you have tokens like pTGC up 50x, 60x, 70x, that's a massive onboarding tool for this blockchain, because we're going to showcase, like, hey, if you're in crypto to make gains, but also want to be in long-term sustainable projects with possibly hundreds of millions of dollars of LP, like, you got to come to PulseChain to get it. And, and that's not so much about just having more devs here, especially with pump tires and pump fun. Like, most of those devs have just turned into random people just launching pump and dumps. But as far as infrastructure, Liberty Swap, and then I'm also very excited for ProveX. So right now we just have the beta. There isn't a lot of liquidity there. I don't know if there's a rollout of like new versions coming out. Like this beta will then transfer into, a new version of it. And I hope that that's also being worked on behind the scenes.
Yeah, that is true too. Well, let's get back to Dickie's question of how many, let's see, what was this question? What would be the X multiplier? Well, if PulseChain, and he did answer the question, he thinks PulseChain is going to do a minimum of 100x. And I agree, 100x. I think pTGC is going to do a 10x. I think it would do a 10x. So that would be 10 times 100.
Clarify a 10x against PulseChain.
Yeah, 10x. Yeah, against PulseChain. And that would be a 1000x. And a 1000x from here would put pTGC at about 8 cents.
Yeah, that would be awesome, right? If we got to 8 cents just in this cycle, that would be amazing. Obviously, there'd probably be retracements off of that and so on and so forth. But that would be a great level to get to. And yeah, if you believe in PulseChain, if you believe PulseChain can 100x from here, I don't see a reason why that's not possible. Truthfully, I don't see a reason why PulseChain can't 100x from here. We know that the founder of this blockchain has every level possible to do that, or lever.
Yeah. And if PulseChain does 200x, that would be a 2000x for pTGC, which would be not just 8 cents, but 16 cents. Double your bags. Yeah, man.
So there was a post that I made, Banana, that's kind of on this topic that I think super interesting, that I think it needs a little bit like more description verbally, not just written out. I don't know if you fully understood the post, if you read through it or not, but I think it's worth a conversation because it's a super unique talking point that I don't think even a lot of people understand. It took me even using this calculator a bunch to really understand it myself. And it, for me, highlights the opportunity that we still have here at the bottom of PulseChain, compared to where after things revalue, like where the difference is and what different opportunities present themselves now, present themselves later, and present themselves along the way to that X multiplier in the growth of PulseChain.
Okay. Yeah, I read all your posts. I don't dwell on a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And which post are you referring to? Because I think what we can do is I'll read it, and then if you want to talk about it, we can do that.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, and I don't think most people fully understand.
Well, let me know where to find it. Oh, we just lost Spaces. Yep. We lost everything. So what we'll do is we're going to wait until he comes back on. He'll drop a new Spaces in the Telegram. So I'll have my Telegram pulled up here. And he's going to make a new one. Okay. All right. We'll just hold tight. Appreciate you guys being here. Saturday Spaces are my faves. My favorite. Yeah, 8 cents. 8 cents. Lord have mercy. What can Richard do to pump the chain? Well, he can do things artificially. If that's the right term. He can like inject liquidity, which would cause sell pressure and also hold pressure. Because that's what everybody says. What about the sell pressure? There's going to be sell pressure. You know, if you were to inject all that capital, true. But there's also hold pressure because there's a lot of people out there that want to hold assets that are going up also. Then he can also, Richard can also amplify his marketing. And we know that one thing he has not been doing, and he knows 1000% the value of streaming on YouTube and going public with interviews and such. He knows the value of that. And I believe that he's timing that deliberately. And that's going to instill confidence in the market. Confidence back into Richard and his products. And obviously that's going to have an impact on everything riding on PulseChain. Crypto 7, good to see you, man. Spaces is for losers. Focus on YouTube where retail will arrive. Spaces is for losers. Well, that's blunt. We do it both. We do it both. And that's the founder's idea too. Like 2 years ago, we decided we're going to do a Spaces. And he's like, can you run that on your YouTube also? And I'm like, we can try. It's been working. All right, let's see if he dropped anything. Here's the new link. Okay. He's like, sorry, guys. It's all right. Let me get this. Jumped in. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't do it on your computer, Prairie Banana. Do it on your phone. Let's see here. Okay. Start listening. We're going to have to remember what we were talking about. I should always jot a note down when we have an interruption like that. %, man. Absolutely.
All right. Sorry, Banana. I went to go look at my page to find the tweet, and I clicked out of I legit clicked out of the account and went into my account.
Oh, that's all right, man. It happens. We're flexible. We're like Gumby around here. We gotta be flexible.
There, Banana?
Oh yeah, my mic was off. Sorry. Yeah, I'm here, man.
Yeah, that was my fault. I went to look at the tweet and I accidentally clicked out of the entire account instead of just searching my name.
Okay, it's all good, man. Yeah, we had a spicy post from Crypto 7 on YouTube. He says, Spaces is for losers. Focus on YouTube where retail will thrive. And then I was talking about how we started this Spaces, 2 years ago and decided to run it on YouTube again. And then I was rambling about Richard Hart timing the market, and he knows exactly what he's doing. I believe that. And then Crypto 7 is like, yep, Richard is timing the market. 100%, because we were wondering how we're going to get to that 100x on PulseChain. But Anyhow, I'm sorry, you were talking about something before we lost the spaces.
Yeah, you were going to go to my account and go to the post
Yes.
22 hours ago and read it. And
yes.
And yeah, I personally believe the same thing with Richard, right? He has a lot more ammo than most of us, right? Tons of ammo, but he's definitely someone that's very, very strategic about when he uses it. And he doesn't want to just start shooting shots when there's no target market in front of us.
Yep.
And then, in Crypto 7, you're 100% right. You know, myself included, when I was retail and I came into cryptocurrency, I spent a year on YouTube, probably more on YouTube only. I didn't even make my way to crypto Twitter probably until a year and a half after even being in DeFi. So, I 100% agree. YouTube is the way to get retail. Just right now, we're killing two birds with one stone, doing the YouTube and the spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I both being in business, whenever you can multiply your effectiveness, you're going to do it. So it's no wonder we do it this way. I don't know of anybody else that does it this way. If you guys know of someone, let me know. But let's get over to that post. But Holland says that Zen can make me, this is what he says, you can make me a co-host, and should we lose the space, then it would remain open that way. Maybe you can look at that as we're going through spaces. If you can make me the co-host, then I guess we wouldn't lose the spaces. That's what he is saying.
Cool. Yeah, I just sent the co-host invite.
Oh.
I'll start doing that at the beginning.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that, Holland. Teamwork, guys. I love it. Yeah, and just real quick, Richard said when he injects liquidity, it goes off chain. Yes, that some will go off chain. That's going to happen, but a lot is going to remain on chain too. It's like we're going to have sell pressure and hold pressure too as things go up. I mean,
100%. As price starts moving up, there is people that are on this ship right now that want off the PulseChain ship. And by moving price up, you're going to get those people out. But I also believe there's a large amount of people still sidelined because they're waiting for a confirmation of PulseChain not sinking anymore. And I also think there'll be a wave of users that come into PulseChain once it confirms an uptrend, because there ain't a lot of places to go to get gains, right? Like, yeah, you can meme coin gamble or search for projects that are DeFi on Ethereum or Solana, but there ain't a lot of good stuff out there. And I think once we get a confirmation, maybe if Richard comes back or whatever sparks our uptrend, I personally think that there'll be a wave of users ready to come over to PulseChain and be a part of the community and make gains.
Yeah.
And the only way that they can get in is by buying a bag. And if that's buying out some existing holders out, or if that's pushing the price up higher, it's good either way.
Yeah. Holland says that we were talking about some super unique talking points before the spaces dropped. And he goes on and says, I've gotten so much information and communication through X for pTGC because we, the holders, can interact and easily make an X account. It's just user friendly, you know. And I want to read these comments from C7. He says, PulseChain, and we'll get to your post. PulseChain is the only crypto not down today. The ungrateful trash have gone. PulseChain has bottomed. Well, I was looking at Deck Screener. PulseChain's red for 9 months, 3/4 of a year. So far in May, and we're past the middle of May, it's green. Yeah, man. I mean, if PulseChain is bottom, I can see that. Absolutely. All right. When did you make that post, Zen?
2 hours ago.
Okay. It's all about constantly taking steps in the right direction. That one?
It could be that one. There should be only one that's 22 hours ago.
Oh, 22. I'm sorry. Yep. This is some very interesting data. Yeah, I remember this one. Okay. I'm going to share my screen quick, and then we'll read the post and you can make comments on it. This is, and if you're not following the Gray 369 on X, you need to follow him. This is some very interesting data on how the V2 LP structure works and how the Grays are going to use this information to create the best outcome for pTGC holders. This also showcases how little pTGC is truly dependent on massive moves from LP and more dependent on constant onboarding and community efforts if the goal is X's. That being said, we obviously would prefer more growth of the LP because it's more LP and easier to onboard, but we are not dependent on it. Look at the images below. We are putting the same yearly amount of value in, resulting in net positive buy pressure. In one scenario, we are also starting 5x higher. One revaluation is 10x, the other is 2x. The interesting thing is why the 2x ends up at a higher price compared to the 10x revaluation from the start. It's because if you can actually bring in the same amount of value, it's a lot easier to achieve more X's with less LP. Obviously, you need to know that getting the same amount of net buy pressure in a completely worse environment is unlikely, but it still paints an amazing picture. Our success is on us. Keep grinding and pushing forward, and we will be successful with time and consistency. pTGC is destined for $1.
So did you get that, or do I need to dig into any of those pieces a little bit more, Banana?
I read this one twice, so I did get some of it. And I scanned through the images a couple different times. I think as I was reading the post, I scanned through the images, and I did not entirely get it.
Okay, so these are two different situations. One of the situations is us getting a revaluation of a 10x from our LP. So pretty much in general, PulseChain being up 10x. The other situation is PulseChain in general only being up 2x. In both situations, we kept every other category the same amount of net buy pressure, the same amount of consistent growth from PulseChain after that point, the same amount of sell pressure. They're both at 95% sell pressure and so forth. But when you look at the growth over 10 years, they both end up near $1, even though one of them had a 10x early on and the other one only had a 2x. And the one with the 2x actually has more X's.
Yeah. That's a mind bender.
It's a mind bender, right? Like you would think that the one that you got an initial 10x on instead of a 2x on with the same amount of net value brought in through 10-year span, you would think naturally that one would end up higher. You would think maybe you end up 5x higher because that's the difference at the launch. But you actually end up lower. Both very, very close to $1, right? So they're very similar in price. But the one that you only got a 2x on early on is actually higher than the one you got a 10x on. And it's the same amount of net value being brought. And the reason of this is because you are injecting the same amount of value into something that has less liquidity. So over the time period, actually did more X's for the user, even though you got less help from the blockchain that you're built on. The cool thing is if you actually get the revaluation of PulseChain, they end up very similar in price, but you end up with almost 2 times the amount of liquidity in the route where PulseChain did a 10x. And near $1, at 2 times the amount of liquidity is over $1 billion of additional liquidity being there for our ecosystem. So
Wow.
for me, like, I would obviously prefer that route because I think an extra $1 billion of liquidity compared to just a little bit smaller in price is worth it for sustainability. But I think it is great to showcase that a route to $1 can come many different ways. It can, because we get success from the blockchain. I think that was like 100x over the 10 years from the blockchain in the 10x example, and the other one was like a 20x over the next 10 years from the other example. Like a 20x from here in 10 years on PulseChain is not a lot. But in the example, we still showed how we could still get to these numbers. Obviously, liquidity would be a lot thinner. We prefer higher liquidity because we know that will equal more volume and more value just back in the protocol overall. Gains will be more sustainable. But it's interesting to just know that with getting less out of the blockchain, if we're able to bring in the same amount of net buy pressure, which again would be harder because it's harder to onboard when the blockchain doesn't have more users and more activity and more growth. But if we were able to, we could do more gains.
Yeah, and just for the audience, this calculator, by the way, and I've been wanting to mention this calculator, the calculator that we talked about on Saturday Spaces last Saturday and last Monday is now on pTGC-UFO.com. So what you see on my screen and what is in Zen's post, you can do on your own with the calculator. You just go to pTGC-UFO.com, select calculators, and I'm showing it on my screen. It takes a second to pull up, and then it's the calculator labeled the new one, the 10-year projection calculator, which has been a bombshell in the last 10 days.
Yeah, and since Saturday we've made so
since Saturday what?
We've made some tweaks to the calculator.
Yes.
So we have some additional things that we can move around now. One of the cool ones is we can actually increase sell pressure over 100% now. So if you're someone that thinks that in the next 10 years have more sellers coming in or more sellers sell value than buy value, which in my opinion is completely unlikely. But you can actually even factor the stuff in and see that it's still possible to do X's because of the automatic buy and burns and automatic buy pressure with code, and also revaluations of PulseChain from the low. Obviously, I will remain over time period in a net positive amount of buy pressure from human interaction, not be net negative. But it is cool to create every type of scenario that could ever happen and see what the outcomes are.
Yep.
But yeah, back to the main topic. I just when I kind of noticed that where you actually make more gains with less X's out of the blockchain, when you have that same amount of net positive pressure, I just found that super interesting, and it kind of showcases like that there is many different ways to win. We can win with little help from PulseChain. We can win with a lot of help from PulseChain, like the example we got earlier in the comments where they think PulseChain could do a 100x this cycle. Obviously, that would be awesome due to many reasons. But there is ways that we can win as a community, you know, very much like we've been in. We're on a blockchain that's down 93% from sacrifice price. There's plenty of ways we can win with the tools that we have in front of us. We need to just utilize those tools and, you know, as a community, work together to push toward the common goal for long periods of time.
Yep. We'll get there. Crypto7 makes a good point. He says, for people coming in now, PulseChain is the only crypto not down today. Further evidence, it has bottomed. pTGC is one of the best performing cryptos on PulseChain. Therefore, buy today. Yeah.
Yep. In an extremely deep zone, right? We've even came down a little bit since that pump, and we're back at like what, 24 mil market cap. And I think the local low for us was 19 mil market cap. So we're not far off the bottom. So if you're someone who thinks PulseChain's bottomed, if you're someone who thinks ETH has bottomed or close to bottom, like these prices, I think, are very close to the best we're going to get this crypto cycle. And if this crypto cycle starts to perform, like these could be some of the cheapest prices that we see ever for pTGC again.
Yep.
Because I think after we push out of this zone and after we start the actual uptrend of this bull cycle, I personally don't believe PulseChain or pTGC will ever come back to these prices.
Yeah. What's interesting is that, let's see, I got to look at this on the daily. Because I was noticing that Bitcoin was struggling a little bit today. And that's going to affect PulseChain. But yeah, let's see. PulseChain, let's do a quick comparison. PulseChain is actually up 0.5% in the last 24 hours. What? This almost is not, I'm having a hard time with this. And Bitcoin is down 1%. Well, sometimes it takes a number of hours for that reflexivity to kick in, but PulseChain doesn't need to take, or go in reverse like Bitcoin is. But that is very interesting. I love that. Question from JV Minery. If it was up to solely the pTGC team at these prices, should we only focus on buy and burn or only focus on adding LP? I think that just kind of depends on where we are cyclically, I think we go through seasons of adding LP and buying and burning. Although we did, and we blew right on past this note, and it's worth noting that we added, you said, $15,000 of LP to the WETH pair just yesterday or today, and that's worth commenting on. Because that's our second. I was looking at ptgc-ufo.com. It's our second most productive LP, second or third right now. That pTGC WETH pair. Let me get back on it.
I was looking. Go ahead.
I think the first was is the WPLS pair. It'll take me a second. I'm just pulling it up. Okay. Let me get this sorted. pTGC WPLS, that tiny liquidity with $5,000 in it, and after that, it's PTD. Oh, that was the V2. V2 is at the top, and the pTGC WPLS V1 is the second one. In as far as volume to liquidity ratio, and then the third one down is the and I'm just going to call that the second one because those two are just on different PulseX versions, and then pTGC WETH on PulseX V2 is number 2.
Yeah, yesterday when I looked, it was number 1 also.
Okay,
it's constantly up there. Constantly up in the top 3.
So we got to add to those top 3.
Well, the code adds to PLS automatically, so I don't really focus on that one. We know that the code's going to add to that one for the rest of the existence of this blockchain. So that's one thing I feel like a lot of people forget about. Like, we'll be 5 years down the road, and let's say we're 100x higher or whatever, 1,000x higher, however higher we are, and our liquidity will be super high, and our value generation will be super high, volume will be higher, and every single day we are going to just keep adding and adding to that pair via the code of pTGC. Like it'll become massive.
It'll never stop. We could even make it. We can make it more massive by adding to it, though. Also, but if you're going to put 15 grand into a pair, are you going to put it in the one that has $400,000 in liquidity or $100,000 in liquidity? Well, if you're going to go by ratios, I'm going to make an impact on the $100,000 liquidity pair. and it's obviously it's not the $100,000 liquidity needs to be added to. The $400,000 WPLS pair is always being added to, and you can't stop it.
So going back to the initial question, like was he saying if we could only focus on one?
Yeah.
You know, I see pros and cons to only focusing on one completely. That's why I think with the DAO to date, we've taken a very like diversified approach to it. It's like, hey, let's focus on both. I don't see a situation where we ever do focus on one, truthfully. I always want to keep up the buy and burns, and I always want to keep up adding LP to the pairs that we find most valuable. One that we kind of held off on for years was that ETH pair. And, you know, we just kind of came to the point where we're like, you know, the community wants this, and it's shown to be a massive value generation source for our ecosystem. And we don't think that pair will hold us up back much when it is go time for PulseChain because of the revaluation of everything else. And let's use it to make some value and give us some legacy connection. But just because we focused on that doesn't mean buy and burns aren't a top priority as well. And I think there was plenty of time and plenty of value generation to hit both categories as much as possible.
Yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot when we have a much more volume on PulseChain. I think we're going to learn a lot because, like, with everything being so slow, with the network volume being low, a lot of these data points are clunky. If you kind of follow me, they're not as dependable. Like when we have extreme volume, it's going to be clear what our most productive pairs are. But right now, it's very difficult to determine that.
Yeah, one thing that I've been kind of working on privately is also using AI to give suggestions to us for how to utilize the DAO.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and just yesterday when I'm running the sim, I can run it and then it pretty much creates an MD for AI, and then AI then gives pretty much us a suggestion based on everything it can see by understanding pTGC and then also watching all of the analytics of pTGC as well. It made the suggestion of increasing the ETH pair.
So you actually got feedback from AI about which pair to add LP to?
Well, it gave the suggestion of a pair, but it actually looks at more than just what to add to. It looks at everything that or I wouldn't say everything that the DAO does, but 99% of the time, the DAO is either conserving funds, waiting in PLS, switching to stables, adding LPs, and what does it add to, or buy and burns. So that the AI, it knows that these are our common functions, and now it's reading the markets, reading where we are in pTGC and ratios against PLS, against the dollar, and then also watching all of our liquidity pairs and then making a suggestion on a daily basis when we run the system.
Absolutely genius, man. I mean, we can literally feed so much information into AI, a machine. We can feed it all of our liquidity. We can give it I don't know, maybe in the future, we can give it a link to pTGC UFO and it can read everything in there. And then it can give us feedback. And it can be getting data from other, data points. Man, it can
look at more data points than us, right? Like we
Yeah.
right now kind of know the system maybe better a little bit more than it, but it can learn faster than any of us. It can look at market trends, cycles. It can look at where the market is in general, doing charting. It actually charts very, very well and can pick out uptrends and downtrends. and then also has a very unbiased opinion. So like
which
for
unemotional.
our DAO to utilize it as a suggestion board, I think is super powerful just to make unemotional decisions moving forward. And it's just a suggestion, but even in the future, at some point, like this could evolve into other things like an agent that DAO community members send to the agent, where the agent actually performs the transactions and the moves for the community as a whole. Obviously, there has to be a good amount of battle testing done before that point, but just right now with being a suggestion backboard, I think it's just super unique. You know what I mean? Right now, it's looking at the liquidity pools. It's looking at when we should do buy and burns. It's looking at when we should be just holding in PLS or into stables and waiting for opportunities to present itself. It knows when we should be risk on and risk off, etc. And just yesterday, it said, hey, you know, this ETHLP pool has been in ratio performing very, very well. We should consider adding to it.
Yep. And it can look at our DAO funds, and it can know everything about
everything. Yeah.
It can know everything about
it knows to
pTGC.
look at the Treasury wallet, and it knows how much we have in the Treasury wallet. It knows actually how much we're bringing in every single day, because it looks at our daily volume, our 7-day volume, our 30-day volume. So it can make projections to the future. It knows that we generate revenue off of volume, and as liquidity increases, it will increase the volume. So it knows that by growing our liquidity, either in price appreciation or by add, that it will actually create a flywheel and keep growing. So it, at some point, I think will know more than us.
It is going to know before even projects launch that there are going to be a project perhaps that we may want to take a position in. I mean, it knows everything practically about crypto. And long before, you know, we have our ear to the ground, listening for real world assets coming onto PulseChain, for example. But AI will know way before we hear about anything about something coming onto PulseChain or a new project or whatever that we may want to, that it may advise we take a position in even.
Yeah, that's a harder one, right? Like I still lean on the side of like, we have to always consider that, and I don't think this will ever change, that 99.9% of projects will always fail.
Uh-huh.
Especially with the existence of pump.fun and pump.tires. So that's, I think, a little bit more tricky for AI to make the decision on the integrity of the people behind each project. And that's only one reason projects fail. There's a lot of other reasons, but what it is good at is just math and studying information that's being provided to it. And I think that's super cool for pTGC because we have data, we have information to track, tons of information to track. And mathematically, we know how to be successful. We know that it's just one big math equation with LP, volume, ratios, time, community increasing size, and we can actually feed that information constantly and just use it as a backboard at least to see what its suggestion.
Yeah, it can. I mean, I'm picturing an AI that will constantly monitor everything going on in the Grays currencies, pTGC and UFO, and constantly monitoring everything that's going on in perhaps like the broader crypto, broader financial markets, but in particular on PulseChain, and advising us on upcoming opportunities. Man, an AI machine could help the pTGC DAO like operate like a well-oiled machine. Yeah, man. That's exciting. I love it. JV Minery says, one more question. What was the thought? And you can ask, guys, ask as many questions as you want. We love the questions. What was the thought process and reasoning behind starting to add LP with WETH?
So adding LP with in stables in Bitcoin kind of
Lost you.
lost me.
Yeah, you're breaking up. You're gonna have to rewind about 10 seconds.
Yeah, so adding to ETH, stables, wrap Bitcoin, long-term legacy tokens has always been part of the plan, right? The number one focus at first was to build up the RH tokens to a point that we feel comfortable with, feel like, hey, we scoop these up at the bottom. That revaluation time comes, which we believe it is going to come, we have plenty of those tokens. But we also want to increase the legacy tokens as well, not only giving our community confidence that we're tied to some of the only legacy value on directly, not indirectly through Pulse or et cetera, but directly to this protocol. And once we saw that, we were generating good revenue off of it every single day. A lot of our other pairs are very much based on when they shift up and down. And if they're not shifting up and down, we're not really generating revenue off of it. But it seems like with the ETH, even though it's not shifting up and down, there still is a constant amount of value generation going through it because of us having a large majority of the ETH LP on chain and that being a very active token that people flow in and out of. Obviously, a lot of people flow in and out of that because that's such a legacy asset. They bridge in and out with it. They hold it when they, feel that they need to diversify from RH's ecosystem, but want to remain on chain, etc. So it's just one more leg of the ecosystem that's always been part of the plan. But we're just finally getting the chance to start building that up because we feel that the RH tokens that we have hit a level to where we can say, hey, if we have these, let's get some of these other pairs in the mix to create a little bit more diversification. And we have to keep in mind all the RH tokens are so tied together. We also want things that have longevity, but also have some of their own market as well to, hit those shifts in the liquidity pool that are necessary to generate revenue. But yeah, it's always part of the plan, right? Like what pTGC is today with the LP pool with ETH of 120K or whatever, 100K, whatever it is now. RH tokens adding up to like almost 1 million. And then a mix of other things like P copies, other ecosystems, some meme tokens like most, etc. What those are worth and what those are today to our ecosystem is not what pTGC will be in the future. If you believe in the success of PulseChain, if you believe in ETH finally breaking these all-time highs and let's say going to 10K, getting adoption in general, if you believe Richard's going to come back, if you believe you will have a legit bull market here, these liquidity pairs are going to be way different. So will the price, so will the value generation be on a daily, weekly basis. And we're going to have the opportunity to add to anything we want for the rest of the existence of PulseChain. I think that's going to be a combination of RH tokens, especially once they start their uptrend, a combination of ETH, Bitcoin, stables, right? These are all things that we want in this web so we can generate revenue off of the entire market and have that value back in the system for the community. It's always been part of the plan. Just obviously we thought we were going to get more of a bull run this cycle and we're going to be able to build that a little earlier. But we just didn't get that opportunity to build it that early. So we're working on getting it built right now before the next bull run.
Yeah, man. Thanos asked a question. When would be a good time to add LP with Bitcoin, BTC, in your opinion?
I really, with like Bitcoin and ETH, I don't think there's ever a bad time, right? Like getting as much of those tokens as possible, I think is just valuable to our ecosystem as a whole, backing the token and also being able to generate revenue off of it. I think it just, as value comes in, we have to be smart about the best use case of that value, especially when we're at these low levels, right? Putting value in the right spot right now could go a long way. In the future, I think we'll have so much value and we'll be doing so much X's, we won't have to be so particular about it. For example, if we're generating 20x the amount of daily value, it goes from, let's say, $1,000 a day to $20,000 a day. It's going to be super, super easy to build up that Bitcoin pair or that ETH pair, or, let's say we're at market highs and we want to really build up a stable pair for the bear market. Not so much to hedge us against it, but to generate revenue off of it. If there's a point to generate revenue off of a stable coin, it's at the highs. So it counteracts the downtrend a little bit, plus you're getting a lot of revenue generation for it. This is something we really wanted to take action on last cycle that, as a group, we missed a little bit getting that add in just because PulseChain and alts just tapped out so early and we never really got that run. Technically, we've been in a bear market in alts for like 14, 15 months, I think. So, again, having these legacy pairs has always really been part of the plan, but we're just getting them built as time goes on, and while also still focusing on the things that we know works too, which is the liquidity web and buy and burn.
Well, there you go, Thanos. It's good to see you in the chat too, by the way. Appreciate you. Well, Zen, I'd like to do an experiment, probably with the new calculator. I think it's going to involve the new calculator. What I did is, I've been tracking this experimental wallet, and I totaled up all the yield that a dolphin earned in all of 2025, and it was 663,027 tokens, pTGC tokens in yield for a staked and locked, just staked position. That's just including if the tokens were staked. So how can we equate that to like 10 years from now? If we have a $1 pTGC, well, obviously that would be $663,000 worth of pTGC earned, 11 years ago. But how is volume going to change that? How is it going to affect yield going forward?
Yeah, well, obviously the higher volume, the more yield you're going to be receiving. But there's different ways to get to that price level. And that also goes back to my tweet I previously brought up, that we got to $1 almost in both scenarios. Like, it was very similar as far as price, but there was different liquidity levels. We had pretty much an extra $1 billion of liquidity in the route that was with X from the blockchain, or with more X's from the blockchain. We had the amount of liquidity. So at that point, making the assumption based on the data that we've grabbed that we would have almost double the amount of volume. Obviously, our community would love that scenario because we would be generating more revenue. We would be getting more APY. We'd be doing more buying. We'd be out being able to more LP, or maybe at that point, the community is thinking over $2 billion of liquidity. If we get there, like, we pretty much can just turn on the buy and burn from now on. Like, we don't need to add anything more. Like, we feel confident in what we have. There's obviously different routes to that point, but you can create a route. You can plug in all your own numbers, what you think is the most plausible way to get to those prices. And then you can just see what the daily volume is and, obviously plug that into the APY calculator.
Yeah, I guess what I came to the realization about was, like, whenever pTGC goes to $1, this dolphin position earned in 1 year $663,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a year. So what's it earning?
If you hold on to that APY, you're saying.
Yes, you have to hold on to it until pTGC reaches that dollar. Yeah. Yep.
And that's really the biggest thing, right? Like that's the hardest part is getting Bitcoin to 120K after 15 plus years. Like that's the journey. But the hardest part was for people to hold on to their bag, right? It wasn't always so much about how early you found something, but you just can't sell on a 2 to 3x constantly. If you do that, you'll never make it to those thousands of X's. And that's, I think, going to be very, very similar for pTGC. It's been very similar for ETH, right? There's early adopters to everything. The majority of the early adopters sell way too early, right? It's more about having a long-term mindset with at least a portion of your bag. So at least a portion of your bag can actually get to those levels. As far as like the APY that you're receiving, yeah, that would be awesome. Maybe your APY that you receive is your 10-year bag, and then you just scrape off a little bit off of your bag itself as for profit taking or DCAing out or whatever it is, right? Like no one's saying you need to hold your entire bag 10 years. Like this is one thing I saw people do with Hex is like, oh, I locked my whole bag out 15 years. And it's just like, well, you can't touch any of that APY for 15 years now. You're now stuck, without any form of being able to take profits or APY for 15 years. And yes, in 15 years, that could be something massive and you look like a genius, but it's a tough time till then where with me, I think you can still have a long-term mindset, and you can do this with Hex as well with ladders. The cool thing about pTGC is your APY is accessible at any point. It's liquid. You can claim it right to your wallet, you profit taking, or maybe again, you take all your APY and lock that out 10 years and keep your pTGC completely just staked, liquid stakes or whatever. But yeah, it's about, I think, believing in something long-term, having conviction as a community. And if that's holding your APY for long, or if that's holding a portion of your bag, big or small, but continuously working towards a common goal for periods longer than 2 months, right? Most cryptocurrencies die within 2 months and never come back. People just hop to the next thing. You see this so often with people within cryptocurrency. Like you see them constantly talking about one thing for like a week, and then the next week comes and they're talking about it, and then the next week comes and they're talking about the next thing, and they're never consistently talking about the same thing. And I think for adoption, for true success, we have to, as a community, get behind certain projects long term and believe in something longer than a week.
Yeah, we do. And that's where the value.
That doesn't mean there isn't gains to be made here or there, in this space on those shorter term things. Like that's part of the cryptocurrency game. There's tons of different parts of this ecosystem. You don't have to play all of them. Some people make gains in leverage trading, but the majority of people don't. So you have to be smart if you're going to be doing that kind of stuff. And some people make gains playing the memes. Some people just want something that's secure, that's inflationary, that has built-in APY that they can DCA in over a long period of time that they believe in 5 years, 6 years, 3 years could change their life forever, right? And maybe even once it gets to that point, they're still DCAing. There's people that have been DCAing into Bitcoin for 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm. Or longer.
On the lows, when low prices come about, like where we are right now in ETH or pTGC, like these are the times where you DCA in. And then when you're at highs in the bull market, those are the times where you maybe DCA a little bit out, and capital DCA in at the next low. And if that low never comes, well, you took a little profit. No big deal. You're never completely in or completely out. So if things keep running, you're happy. If things go down a little bit more, well, you have some dry powder to take action
on it. Yep. Who wants to come up and chat? Does anybody have any comments or news? I get comments on YouTube, and people appreciate our Saturday spaces, and I do too. I love the Saturday spaces. Last Monday was really good too, man. We had a great time on spaces last Monday. That was fun going through those exercises.
Yeah, I brought 2 people up. Moonteen came up, and then also Lindora.
So you guys, is it at 115 total? About. That's changed because the price has changed, but roughly how much?
Yeah, it's 100. The liquidity with pTGC and WETH is 127,000. That's what you're referring to. Oh, we added 15. Added 15. Yes.
On top of that, or that's total?
That's total.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah.
Good time.
Thank you. Yeah. It's our second highest performing pair right now.
Yeah. That's what was pretty predicted. I mean, I know you guys tested out earlier. It was generating a lot of revenue. So it really made sense.
I love it.
My voice is a little raspy at our Ice Wars event on Thursday. That PulseChain sponsored and got a lot of, they were the big co-main event video package. Had it on the back of the jerseys. Talked about massively amount of times on the show. And something I can't.
Well, good. We like to hear about stuff you can't talk about that's going on about our favorite blockchain.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we can't officially talk about for another, I would say, a couple months. But it's bigger than what most people think or expecting. So it's not just like a little one-off event. This is that. It'll be on DirecTV, Fight TV on the 23rd. I can't talk about that. So that will be aired with around a good amount of people. But the one in a couple months is going to be, let's just say, the best way to say it is worldwide. That's the best way.
All right, you better. You heard it here.
As much as I can say.
You better pack your bags with pTGC right now, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't ever guarantee
No.
anything will come of it.
No.
The best thing is always, when it comes to marketing and that form fit of marketing, is continuation of notoriety. Everybody knows in the UFC what VeChain is, but everybody in crypto doesn't even know what VeChain is. And the main reason is because VeChain sponsors the UFC, so you see it all over the ring and everything. So when everyone talks about crypto to family and everything, most UFC fanatics were like, "Oh, well, VeChain."
Sure.
They'll know more about VeChain than like XRP and all the other ones. So it's one of those things where you keep pushing it. Sooner or later, people are just like, "Oh, what's PulseChain.com?" And then they'll just Google PulseChain.com. So it's kind of one of those things. There's no guarantee conversion, but you get that notoriety.
You don't need the conversion right away. You need the exposure. Everybody needs to be exposed to it multiple times, oftentimes before they'll take a position. But you got to start. It's that first initial exposure that's most key.
Exactly, and that was 100% paid for by Firewell. Originally, it was X Games, his old project that he had, and then obviously, apparently, some people might have scalped the project and took advantage of that announcement and used that for X liquidity. But after that, once his coin was kind of wrecked in that way, he said PulseChain needs more exposure, so make it PulseChain. And then
I love it. Good
we
man.
kind of went above and beyond with that because it was supposed to be just like a regular event, not more to it. So we just changed it over to this.
Cool.
So it delayed the advertisement a little bit, but it's going to start coming out over the next 2 months.
Kudos to Firewell for doing that. I love that.
Yeah, that'll be nice for PulseChain, just getting some brand recognition out there and just putting it in front of users. If for when green candles start to happen and people hear about green candles and they recognize the logo from these odd things, if it's, you know, on the back of this Ice Wars, or, you know, he's saying maybe some other stuff in the future, or if it's from them getting a tablet. However, they've seen the logos before to recognize the name. When we do start getting some green candles, they're more likely to take action because they already know the name.
Yep, absolutely. You got to hit people multiple times. They say seven is about 3 to 7, I would say. It's about how many times you got to hit people with your branding before they actually will look into what you're pitching over to them and perhaps take a position. George Reed just bought a big bag of UFO at $4.7 million market cap. Congratulations, George. Well done. What else is happening, guys?
I'm trying to bring up Lenora again. Lenora, did you have a question or a comment?
I'm from China.
Do you have a question or comment about pTGC or PulseChain?
pTGC, yeah, I like.
Okay.
My friend is Mo M-O-O-N. Mo King. Mo King say 1080, very good.
All right, Lenora, we're having a hard time understanding, so I'm just going to bring it down. Thank you for coming up, though.
Anyone else?
Nope, that was it.
Run through any scenarios on the calculator? I mean, it has been updated since we ran through it Monday. That was the last time we used it. We can run through any of the calculators if you wanted to.
Yeah, you know, one thing I'd like to do, because on the calculator we didn't have user sell pressure over 100% last time we did it. And since I got that added in, I'd love for us to run through some simulation with user sell pressure being actually higher than buy pressure, and showcase just how, even in that environment, how strong the pTGC code is and how we can still create massive growth over periods of time, even when there's more sellers than buyers.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. We have a lot of settings to go through. Not a bucket ton, but several.
And also just be an environment where over periods of times, obviously it could be a year or a month where there's more sellers than buyers. But from where we are on PulseChain, where we are in pTGC, I don't actually see this taking place. I see us having a lot more net positive buy pressure than sell pressure. But it's cool to see how powerful the system is, even in the scenarios of more sell pressure than buy pressure.
Yeah. Yep. There are actually 8 settings to this calculator. You probably knew that, but I just counted them up, and that's cool. That's good to know. So you can really dial this in. And again, for the audience, this is at ptgc-ufo.com, the site that Chaka Vibes founded, and you guys have all have access to this. This is it's the new calculator. It's labeled new. It's the 10-year projection calculator. So what we will do is we will input these 8 different values, and then we'll look at an output down below. The output is going to be price in X's, market cap, LP size, and daily volume, going out from year 0 to year 10. So what is year 0? Year 0 starts with ever your definition of the PulseChain revaluing. For me, for example, it's whenever pTGC has $1 million in volume consistently day after day. I think at that point, PulseChain must have revalued. But year 0 is that starting point out 1 year. Do you have any comments on that, Zam?
No, but I do think it's important to kind of highlight that when PulseChain and when PTC has hit their local highs recently, or it's actually not that recent now, but PulseChain was roughly 4 zeros and a 7, which is roughly 10x a meter. Our average volume was around 500K a day. So for kind of, I think what you're looking for is maybe a 20x from here is the revaluation point to you.
Yes. It would be about that.
To get to that $1 million a day volume.
Yes.
Obviously, we hope we could get time around. Like, of course, we want that. But just judging by the past, that's roughly where we would get that.
Yep. Because the volume tracks price. Is that what you were getting at? It tends to.
Yeah, volume tracks liquidity. Liquidity is very correlated to price. So.
Okay. All right. So let's fill out this calculator, but I want to answer George Reed real quick. He asked, can you stake UFO? You cannot stake UFO. You can do two things with it: hold it to earn reflections or LP it with the RH tickers. You need to do that on the D app. And if you want to jump into my stream tomorrow, I stream every Sunday about the Grace currencies, and I will walk through everything that you can do with your UFO. So let's go fill out this calculator. The first field that we're going to fill in is the year 0 LP multiplier. What do you want to put in there? I mean, this year 0, again, this is the revaluation of PulseChain. So what do we think that our LP will do?
You were saying what your number was.
Yep.
You were saying roughly at 20x. That's your opinion.
True.
So do you want to use yours, or do you want to do a modest one?
Let's do a modest one. We always want to do modest. What do you think?
I personally think 5x from here is my revaluation zone personally, and that's because that's what the price PLS was roughly when ProveX got announced. And it looked like we were forming some strong support there until that announcement, and the announcement obviously sent it down to these levels. I personally think when we get to that level, the pTGC machine will start to wake up and that's kind of where I'm counting on a revaluation point that could be here in the near future.
Okay. I was thinking about this too on my country drive this morning. This is a 10-year projection, and crypto goes in cycles. So you could actually do this calculation a couple different ways. You could do a short-term projection, 2 years, and really amp it up, or you could do it a full 10 years. But if you're going to do the full 10 years, you got to dial it back, because we'll go up cycle and down cycle a couple times probably in that 10-year span.
Yeah, so this calculator is very much based off of averages. What you're asking it is averages based on the entire 10-year span. But there's always going to be bull years, bear years, flattish years, and you're kind of just creating the average of all those. Like, for an example, if you took pTGC from month 1 to price now, well, you would take okay, they've been around for this many years and they did this amount of exits in that year. Okay, so this was their average per year. You know what I mean? Or let's say we go forward 3 years from now, and then it totals up 5 years. And wherever we're 3 years from now, you go, roughly a few months in, and you're like, okay, throughout 5 years, this was the starting price, this is the ending price. So the average X every year was this.
Okay. So what do you want to put in for the ongoing annual LP growth after year 0?
I've been putting 25% there, but we could go a little heavier, a little lower.
I'm happy with 25.
5x. Yeah, if we're only doing a 5x to start the revaluation, I think we could get more than that. Where does that equal? It should say underneath. Where does that get us as far as X's in the next 10 years? It'll say that.
Total LP multiplier would be 47x.
Okay, so then that's saying you think PulseChain will 47x in the next 10 years.
Okay. All right. I haven't actually looked at those in such detail. Yeah, we need to crank this up. I set it to 50%, and now it's 288x in the next 10 years. That's modest.
Okay,
I like that.
That's off of these lows.
Yes. I like that.
Keep in mind, 100x from here is only 7x stack price. So I think that would be a little over, that's probably around 15 price, a little bit more than that.
Okay.
Which isn't a lot, right? Like a lot of people thought that was a walk in the park right when we launched. So if you think in the next 10 years that's all we can get to, I think that's pretty fair. I think we can very easily achieve that as far as the blockchain goes, as far as the levers we have to pull with this blockchain.
Yep. I'm glad you drew my attention to these numbers down below, because that really helps me in my determining my inputs for this calculator. Because what I did something, I rotated and I put in the years 0 LP multiplier, changed it from a 5x to a 10x. And then I reduced the LP growth from 50% to 25%, and it reduced the total LP multiplier to 93. But if I put it back to where it was, your total LP multiplier is again 288x.
Yeah, there's different ways for similar outcomes, right? Like if you do the revaluation point large at the beginning, but then you do the growth smaller after that, what you're assuming is, I think we're going to have a massive move up and then like consistent growth from there on. But some people might think, okay, I think we'll have a little move up, like a 5x now, but then year after year consistently, I think we'll have a little bit more growth than what we're speculating right now. So there's different ways of looking at it, but with the outcomes being somewhat the same. Like there's multiple ways that we can get to 100x to 200x. Some of it can have a...
You there, Zen?
Or consistent growth rate. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you for about 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just there's multiple ways to get 100x, 200x. Large gains early, less gains later, consistent gains the whole time, low gains now, higher gains later. We'll see how it happens. But we're so low right now that I do think a lot of X's early on are possible.
I agree. A lot of X's early on are possible. But now we're moving on to user adoption, this middle column. I have 5,000 new users in year 0, each putting an average of $1,000 into pTGC, flat growth. And that would put total new users at the end of 10 years, 55,000. That's ridiculous low. Oh, and total net organic 10-year volume, 10-year would be 2.75 million. That's not enough. That's not.
You have to adjust the sell pressure. This is where you might be a little confused. As you move your sell pressure, it will adjust that net positive in or out.
Okay.
So what you're kind of speculating in is what's the sell now?
Oh, I was just messing with it. I think it was at 90. Yeah, 95% is where I've been using it.
Okay. So what you're assuming is, okay, we're onboarding at this rate, but 95% of that's going to be sold into. So, you might be ending up with 55 million, but if 95% of that got sold into, you're only at, 2.7 million end of that 2-year span.
I see. Yeah.
If you have it at 100% sell pressure, that means you can do all this work. You could onboard thousands of people, but if 100% of value is being sold into, you end up with net zero positive human buy pressure at the end. If you go over 100%, you're saying, hey, in 10 years, I think there's going to be more sell pressure than buy pressure. So you can actually end up in net negatives because there's an existing price here and there's already existing liquidity pools. And then also we aren't only dependent on the user buy pressure in this system. We also have a lot of mechanical buy pressure as well that could technically be sold into.
Okay. I'm going to put, this is really helping me looking at these values down here.
So look at that net positive number. And the reason I have like the users and I just want to frame different ways of like getting to these levels. But you can also just look at the net positive level and you could divide that by 10, saying like, oh, I think pTGC could pick up roughly, $2 million of net.
Lost you again.
It doesn't matter how it gets there. It could come from 10 people or 100,000 people, but it's net positive value injected in. Same goes for any cryptocurrency, right? Even PulseChain. We literally buy out. We could put $100 million of net positive buy pressure, one buyer, let's say Richard, or we can get $100 million of net positive buy pressure with 1 million new users, us onboarding naturally. It's still almost the same outcome. You just have to in net positive injection based on sell pressure, etc.
Sure. Okay, I'm setting the new users in year 0 to 7,500, each bringing in $1,000. Flat growth. That would be 82,500 users at the end, total over 10 years. And that's, I think that's very modest, but I would like to build a modest scenario. What do you think, man?
Cool. Yeah, and what sell pressure you're going to use and how much value each person bringing in.
Well, 75% would be $21 million total net organic over 10 years, and 95% would be $4 million. Help me define that total net organic 10 years. Is that the total dollars that would be come into the system, including the sell pressure over 10 years, right?
Yeah, that includes the sell pressure. So for an example, let's say in the next 10 years, we brought in $100 million of buy pressure, but existing users or users along the way sold 95 million of that. Well, then you would only end up with 5 million of net positive buy pressure because 95% of that got to. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So what you are kind of trying to create is, okay, from this point right here where we are, or after year 0, after the revaluation, how much net positive buy pressure do you think we're going to receive? Like, I personally think with PulseChain growing, the assumption of net positive buy pressure is obvious to me because you have a growing ecosystem from 2,000 active users today to hopefully a blockchain that has hundreds of thousands of active users in the future. But that doesn't mean that's a guarantee, right? So, whatever number you think is fair.
I'll tell you what I think is fair. I think we're going to have a net positive of at least $82.5 million at the end of 10 years, but that requires zero sell pressure. If I set it to 95%,
or you just need more buyers, right?
yeah, that's true.
Or yeah, you're never going to have zero sell pressure. Like, you have to assume in cryptocurrency you're going to have sell pressure along the way. Not everyone's going to hold on for 10 years. You know, some people have just 1 year in their mind. Some people have 5, and this could just be a portion of their bag. But there is going to be sell pressure along the way, especially as you do games.
Okay, well, let's set the annual user growth to a positive 25%. That puts us at 319.2 thousand total users by the end of 10 years. And I think that's a reasonable guess. And if you set the sell pressure to 95%, that's $16 million total net organic coming into the system in 10 years. $16 million, which I still think is very, very low.
Yeah, I think personally, I think your average injection per user is low because that's not like the initial buy. Like, a lot of people will DCA. I believe 5 years from now, pTGC can be a system that has people coming in with truthfully millions of dollars. Like that would be a true store value system, like a place that large players are coming to store value. If you even go back to last bull run, like, we saw people coming in with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, this is an average, but if you're trying to boost that number, I think it'd be fair to say in a bull market, an average person could very easily be coming in with more than $1,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I feel like right now you're looking at the environment at the moment, and you have to realize this is probably the worst environment we're going to ever see. Hopefully, in the next 10 years, the environment gets a lot better.
I think it will. I think
so
it
maybe
will.
up that a little bit.
What now?
So maybe up that, like the average price everyone's coming in with.
Okay. 2,500.
Sure.
Okay, that still 319,000 new users over 10 years. Total net organic. What do you call that? Total net organic 10-year what? Value? $40 million. That's with 95% sell pressure. $40 million coming into pTGC. Now let's move to code permanent buyback. I like 50%. And then medium volume. That's a no-brainer. I mean, we can select a higher volume, but medium is what you can expect as an average from one day to the next. Okay, so
one cool thing that Shaka added on to this is you can actually hit like 50% on the Dow side, and what that is the Dow is 50% permanent buy pressure. I think that sits at around 35%.
Yes.
From the Dow.
Oh, I see.
Or you could go a little bit higher than that, like 40%. But I think if we're going the modest side, let's go more at 35-40% there.
Okay. Yeah, I see how you can adjust that. Cool. All right, now let's get down to the rub here. The year zero. You can. Let me know if we need to pause at the snapshots, but let's get to the year by year breakdown. Now, let's see. I want to review the settings. So the settings are 5x year zero LP, 50%. Let me actually look at these. 50% LP growth year over year. New users year zero, 7,500 with 25% growth, and each bringing in $2,500. 95% sell pressure, 50% Dow buy and burn, median volume. Now let's go to the breakdown. At the end of year zero, pTGC would 9x. So LP would be 14.7 million. Daily volume, $157,000. We've been way over $157,000 on average. And then let's shoot to year 5. Year 5, pTGC is 5 cents, which is a 600x from here. $14 billion market cap. LP size of $326 million. $4 million in daily volume. Year 10, $2.25. 26,700x. $652 billion market cap. $6 billion in LP. $6 billion in LP. Daily volume, $73 million. That's nuts, man. And there's, I love this, the 10-year price trajectory is a stinking hockey stick, man. When you get to about, like you were saying, year 5, 6, 7, 8, it just goes, it goes ballistic, man. It's going to the moon. It's like so smooth in the first, we can look at this on log too, but look at the deviation between the code buyback, which is in yellow, and the organic only, no code, just users buying. There's a separation, and it gets larger and larger and larger. What that means is the code is making a bigger impact on the trajectory of this, of everything about this token, the price, the market cap, the liquidity. The code is making a larger impact than users are. That's astounding.
Yeah, it's really interesting growth of not only the users, but also the code just consistently pushing us in that direction. You know, consistent buy and burns, consistent LP ads, consistent rewards for the community. It looks like if we have just a somewhat relevant blockchain, because the scenario we put forward wasn't anything like completely ridiculous, and then our community just actively onboarding, you know, very similar to the amount we've been onboarding throughout these lows and throughout, you know, the 2.5 years we've existed, we can hit some serious numbers. And that doesn't even really include any like super parabolic moves. Obviously, we hope that there's a couple bull runs in that mix to like really increase some of those numbers. But hey, put it on like 99% sell pressure, and let's see where that gets us. And what this is, you know, the net positive amount of value that we bring in, 99% of it gets sold off. As far as organic buy and sell pressure, this is user based. So with human interaction, if we bring in, you know, $100,000, this is 99,000 of those dollars just being sold by users as we go along. Which, you know, I think in cryptocurrency, like, people sell. Like, you have to consider these kind of scenarios. But what's unique to us compared to other protocols is we have other things buying than just users, things that cannot sell and will not sell.
Yes. Okay, let's recap the current settings before we increase the sell pressure. Year 10, price, $2.25, $650 billion market cap, $6 billion LP, $73 million in volume. Now let's increase the sell pressure from 95 to 99. Year 10, $1.23. $357 billion market cap, $4.44 billion LP, $54 million in volume. It didn't change it much at all.
Now put it at 101. So this is more people selling every year than buying, and it'll even tell you the net negative amount of value from user interaction once you plug that in, and tell us where we get at with that.
83 cents, 84. Let's be fair. It's 83.8. That's 84 cents. $242 billion market cap, $3.7 billion in LP, $45 million in volume. Dude, that's from 101% sell pressure.
Yeah, and think about it, guys. Like in a standard system, a standard token, the token wouldn't be relevant with 101% sell pressure. After pretty much a year, it would be gone. It would be a dead token. And you can actually show.
You can actually what? Show what? Lost you, man.
Pull the buyback code to 0. This would be like your standard token, because a standard token doesn't have any buyback from code. It's only based on organic buy and sell pressure. It also has growth of its LPs, right? So you're still going to get the growth of the LPs, but it's interesting to showcase where it would be at in the same environment. You have pTGC doing, I think it was thousands of X's.
Yeah.
And what would like a standard token be at?
I have no idea what a standard token would be at.
Well, just drag the buyback to 0.
Okay. So, and by the way, that's a 10,000. That would be a 10,000x from here.
Oh, yeah, okay, 10,000x.
Okay, so
pTGC in that example does a 10,000x. Let's say your standard non-buyback token, where would that be at with the same exact amount of growth from its liquidity?
Oh, I see what you're doing. I'm picking up what you're putting down. A tenth of that, 1,200x. Wow. So we can simulate a standard token by just eliminating that DAO percentage, right?
No, you need to eliminate everything. Does his have a bar? I forget if he has a bar where you could pull it to 0.
For the DAO?
No, for the whole entire buyback.
Oh, where is that? Pressure. Is that the pressure settings?
I'd have to look at it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a buyback. I see a code permanent buyback.
That's what I'm referring to.
Well, I can't change any of this except for the DAO.
Oh, okay, yeah. I had it on before we put it on the site where we could drop it to 0, but he has it to where there's the permanent functions that can never be turned off, can't be turned off. But
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I can simulate it again. I still have the code that has that, but I'm not on my computer.
Okay, so that wasn't a fair, really,
you still
illustration.
have a buyback on that. Yeah, you're still showing a buyback, because even if you eliminate the DAO completely, you still have, I think, a 15% buyback.
Okay, I think there's value in having the ability to do that illustration.
Yeah, I could do the illustration. We don't need to change the site. The illustration, you actually have the code to the most recent one. You could do it if you want, if you pull up that code.
Okay, meaning in the file that you sent?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll go find it.
You just have to plug in all the same numbers.
Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Does anybody have any comments about this?
But I do think you did an interesting experiment. What you showcased is the same experiment without the DAO participating in any buybacks. It would only be 1,000x, and that would be dependent on the automatic parts of the code doing their thing.
Yep. Okay, let me first make sure that I can actually do this. I still only have code buyback percent of the 5% fee. I can still only change it from 0 to 100. In the
You have the bar, right? You
Yeah.
have the bar that you can just drag it to 0.
Okay. Oh, but I can do that on the other one, Zen. The Dow.
Well, and it's not just the Dow, it's the entire code buyback. You're saying that the
Oh.
other tokens were locked in. So technically, I think you could only get it down to 15%.
Okay. Well, we'll be able to tell once we get all the inputs in. Okay, so give me a second. I'll get these inputs put in here. On growing.
You should be able to drag mine to 0%.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how much are they bringing in? 2,500 per user growth. Let's see, what are we using? 101%. We'll just make this apples to apples.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just going to plug in all the same numbers.
And then sell pressure. Oh no, user growth. Sorry, these are two different things here. 25%. Sell pressure 101%. And code buyback 0 on the new one. Median volume. Yes. Okay. 10 years. Oh, 202x versus even with 0% Dow, 1100x. But if you go to what we know what's going to happen, probably about 50% of the Dow functions is going to be buy and burn.
So real quick before we move on, I wanted to highlight. So even in the scenario of where a token has 0 buybacks, even if when they have more sell pressure to buy pressure, if you have a successful blockchain for a 10-year period, you can still have a good amount of growth. But the code itself is what amplifies that growth. It's the multiplier to that growth. So, and that's only assuming that there's only 101% sell pressure on that token. There could be more, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it is more, especially on a token that no one wants to hold, right? Like on tokens that no one wants to hold, there's usually endless amounts of sell pressure to an extent, especially if the gas token is pushing it up. So one thing that stands out with pTGC is there's reason to hold. You're getting paid an APY. You know that it's getting scarcer every single day. You know that there's being LP added every single day. There's constantly onboarding happening, more likely more onboarding than sell pressure. The reasons why we're here. The highlighting of this is, you can get a lot of growth from a blockchain once it starts moving in the right direction and you're willing to remain bullish for a long period of time. But then also, we are now at the point in DeFi and understanding how these systems function that you can lean into code to do a lot of the rest of the heavy work for you, even if the users are selling at a faster rate than they're buying, which is just insane to think about.
Mm-hmm. It's the machine.
It's the pTGC machine, along with just understanding how to properly leverage a standard V2 liquidity pool. And
right.
I do think there's a unique situation that we have here on PulseChain where the majority of liquidity is all V2 structure. Obviously, there is some other forms of liquidity providing on chain, but the majority of it is V2 structure, and all of our liquidity is V2 structure. And this is my opinion, I don't think it's a coincidence is when we
lost you, Zen, for about 10 seconds. Zen?
Gains have actually been less. V2 structure, I think, is very, very good for price appreciation, for gains. If you're someone who cares about gains and multiplying of liquidity webs and stuff like that, V2 structure is by far good enough. Because a lot of times with V3, people are just using it as sell walls and stuff like that you have to push through. And once you push through them, the liquidity is actually like in a form gone because people are just doing it single-sided both directions.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think Richard knows that. I personally believe that's why we have that here. Is I think he understands that in cryptocurrency, the times where you've had the most growth has been with this V2 style of structured liquidity. And I think he cares about growth. Like, yes, you can do sell walls and you can do in a form like limit orders with V3, but for price appreciation and just having value backing the token, like having a constant market, a market maker, where you're not waiting on buys and sells and the liquidity there that's backing is actually easily tracked. A lot of times on V3, there isn't as much liquidity there than it reads because a lot of it's single-sided, etc. Where V2, in my opinion, is more pure because it's even on both sides. I personally think that's not done on accident or laziness. I think it's because he knows it's secure, it's trusted, and it's good for pumping tokens.
All right. Let me ask you a question. Just give me an honest answer. But is it fair to say, is that just bear with me? I don't have my mind totally wrapped around all of this, but is it fair to say that with this scenario, pTGC is going to do a 10,000x, right? So it'll be $1 at the end of 10 years. That's a 10,000x with $8 million coming out of the system. So is it fair to say that pTGC is a 10,000x token with a net negative value coming into the system?
The organic net negative. Right.
Organic.
So still saying there's a positive because we have the buy pressure of our machine that will never stop. And we also have the price appreciation of the things we're bonded to. In this equation, we're assuming that PulseChain does, I think it was like 250x throughout the next 10 years. So yeah, those are the assumptions we're making. We're saying, hey, we believe PulseChain over the next 10 years will do a 250x. Again, 10 years. Like that's a lot of time we have to do those X's. And then we believe the code's going to do what the code does. That one I feel very, very confident about, unless for some reason code issues come up in the future. Yep. But we're 2.5 years battle tested and audited. But yes, we can absorb negative amounts of organic buy pressure on the chart. So pretty much we can have sell pressure, organic sell pressure on the chart and still remain highly positive, still do 10,000 X's. By leveraging the tools and the mechanics that we know how to leverage in the system. You can turn down, like you can see when you turn down gains from the blockchain, you can see very quickly that for one, a token without any buy pressure from code will go to zero. And for two, you can see it takes away some of our gains in our LP because we're no longer getting the gains of the infrastructure we're built on. Very similar to the situation we've been in for 2.5 years now. We've been on a blockchain going down. What we believe in pTGC is we believe in PulseChain. We believe eventually PulseChain is going to create a bottom. I believe it might have already done it. And we're going to finally start making our way in the up direction. And that chugging in that up direction will bring back the confidence of not only the existing community, but also start to bring in new users as well.
And yeah, and you and I are in agreement that these settings are very modest too.
It's modest, but it's consistent, right? So one thing I think everyone needs to focus on is there's a difference between like having volatile pushes up, but not being able to maintain any of those volatile pushes, or being able to onboard heavily for a month, but if you can't continue to onboard heavily or consistently. This is big for pTGC. Like we can see with this calculator, if we can remain consistent and if the blockchain can be remotely consistent, we know the code's going to be consistent. It's the most consistent thing out there. No trusting human, just trusting code. But if our community can at least be remotely consistent, again, you could have literally the same amount of buyers coming in as sellers and still remain positive. And if the blockchain we're built on can be remotely consistent, like let's even tone it down. Let's say in the next year or 10 years, we only get a 100x out of PulseChain, which is only 7x SEC. Literally 2x away from it, I think.
Right.
Where would that get us, Banana?
Let me see.
Keep the DAO at keep the buyback of code at 35, 40%.
I already changed a bunch of settings. I eliminated all new users, flat growth, and I got the total net organic to $0, and I still came up with like 10,000x.
Yeah, it's crazy. You can play around with a lot of this stuff. And this is kind of why I made the tweet, like, we're destined for $1. You can create tons of different scenarios. And if you're willing to be in the system for 10 years and, assuming the chain's remotely successful, assuming that pTGC doesn't break one day, that the code is secure, we always keep ending up at that close to that dollar amount with very modest numbers. Yeah, it's a time frame though. Like some people are not willing to wait 10 years, just like some people were not willing to wait 10 years for Bitcoin, 10 years for Ethereum. We're on year 17 now for Bitcoin. I think year 11 for Ethereum. But some people are willing to wait. I had someone I think comment on one of my posts earlier today saying like I see that dollar amount, but I don't think that's fair to ask people to wait 10 years. Like I only plan on being here for 4 years. I said, that's completely fine. Like no one's forcing you to stay for 10 years. There's plenty of people in Bitcoin, Ethereum that only stayed a few years and made plenty of great gains. You can look at this calculator and also look at the 4-year trajectory and kind of see what is a fair number for you to look out for, right? Obviously, these things can come in waves with bull and bear markets, but the truth is most people will not have their entire bag 10 years from now. We're not saying you need to be. That's why we have the sell pressure at 100%.
Well, look, I set year 0 multiplier to 5x, annual growth 50%. That's modest. That's a 288x multiplier for our LP. 0 new users. Sell pressure doesn't even matter because there's no new users. 50% DAO, and it's 12,000x in year 10, a $1 pTGC.
Yeah, one thing there's existing users in the system, so just because you're not bringing in users doesn't mean there isn't sell pressure, right?
Yes, but it's not affecting when I change that setting, it's not changing the price.
It's because you took away all the users. You need to put some value there. And then if you want to illustrate more sell pressure than buy pressure, you then move it over 100%. So, there is always going to be buyers, right? You can factor in buyers, but what you want to simulate is if you want to simulate more sell pressure, just keep moving that percentage over, and you can illustrate $100 million of net negative sell pressure if you want to go that crazy. Like you can do a bunch of different things with this.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you have to increase the users and how much they're bringing in to really adjust the sell pressure.
Yeah, so if you want to increase the sell pressure, just keep the user increase the same. Like there will always be a user increase, but then just move the sell pressure higher than that.
Yep.
You can increase the sell pressure so high that literally pTGC goes to 0. Like these things are always the possibilities. Obviously, pTGC really can't go to zero because it's buying and burning itself constantly. Already 13% of the supply is in the debt address that can never be sold. But it helps like illustrate that like how much pTGC can actually absorb with its code and with just a slightly increasing blockchain.
This is very exciting, man. I mean, the older you get, the faster time goes, and you realize how fast 10 years will go by. So,
well, and especially if like this isn't like a hey, you don't get any gains or don't take any gains. Like, what if you're financially free because of pTGC or because of PulseChain, but you're just still remaining to store value on chain? This is very similar to a lot of long-term Bitcoin and ETH people. A lot of long-term Bitcoin and ETH people who still own large bags of Bitcoin and ETH, like very generous people who are buying cheap prices, either 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, they're not toughing it. They're living very, very well off of their Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're just remaining to hold the majority of their bag in the asset that has changed their life forever, because it's had better performance year after year than every other option out there.
yeah.
So what we're saying is like, it's not about like holding on to your bag straight for 10 years. It's about holding on to something
Yes.
for 10 years.
Yeah, man.
It's a very, very different thing. It's not about never taking profits and never helping your family or setting your, taking care of your family, but about like, hey, if a system is being proven to outperform pretty much everything that exists, and if we can get this to a point to where we buy out a lot of users and the sell pressure starts to slow down, or we can prove to absorb it and users are coming in to store value here worth millions, like this truly could be one of the next store of value systems. And every single year, the amount of value that you have could be increasing massively, even with you taking good chunks of value out.
Absolutely. I think everybody here would agree. You don't want to go to your grave holding your entire pTGC bag because what value is there in that? Everybody's going to take and should take profit. Go change your life and the lives of others in the process. But be careful, of course, when you do that and save some. But with this scenario, it decreases the amount you need to.
There's always going to be bear markets and bull markets. Timing a bull market and taking profits at those times is drastically going to help your bag. If you're someone completely, needing your pTGC bag to live life and stuff like that, a long extended bear market could take a massive dent in your pTGC bag. I can see that happening right now. We've been in a bear market in alts for like over a year now, and people are chopping away at their bag. And, what I'm getting at is like, do what you can to make it to the next bull market where you don't need to chop away at that much of your bag, and you can actually let this thing appreciate. There's been countless times in cryptocurrency, especially with, the big two, Bitcoin and Ethereum, the people who chopped away at their bag too much, after a few years, had no Bitcoin and Ethereum. All they had to do is hold on to it for a cycle or two, and they would have never even put a dent in their bag whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is a nice thing about having other things to look at to know what's possible, right? If you ask people early Bitcoin days with a somewhat set supply, obviously it's still in an inflation period. But if you ask them, like going from $1 to $120,000 a piece, like if that was possible in that time span and it was going to happen, like a lot of people probably would have said no. Obviously, tons of people sold at $1,000 Bitcoin, $2,000 Bitcoin, $5,000 Bitcoin, $10,000 Bitcoin, like you name it. There's plenty of sells all the way up that chart, endless amounts. But there is some people who held on to a portion of their bag who pretty much don't have to worry about anything ever again.
Yeah.
Like truthfully, and they took in profits along the way. They were just particular about making sure that there was a bag remaining as it goes to higher levels. Like for an example, if in this next bull market or two, let's say we hit $1 million Bitcoin. Well, yeah, they probably took some profits here and we're living off of it here too, but they did well about still keeping a bag to get to that next level and that next level to where they're never really going dry.
Yep, that's very wise to do it that way. Very wise. Oftentimes we just want to ape out the whole bag though. And that's
cryptocurrency, right? Like
yeah.
you have to realize the environment of why people are like that. When you're in an environment of 99.9% failure rate, this is the general action that most people take when they're up that amount of X's. If they're up 10X, 20X, like they're just like, ooh, I just need to get my money and run. But you have to always think like eventually there is going to be those next tokens that are multi-cycle systems, that have communities that are multi-cycle, that actually get behind a common goal and don't jump to the next thing a week later just to trick someone else out of their money and then hop to the next thing and to the next thing. I think PulseChain is built of these type of people. Like a lot of people had this belief for Hex. I personally still believe Hex has the potential to be this. It's just obviously it did a 10,000X, and with a 10,000X, it takes a distribution period that has to take place. pTGC has been going through this distribution period for a year and a half now, and it didn't have as many people up so much to where I think our process has been able to be a little bit quicker along the side of, instead of being inflationary, we're deflationary to make it to where we're not constantly battling the inflation of a system, but it's all part of the journey. And I think if we're patient, we wait, we keep doing what we're doing, I think everyone can be pleasantly surprised with a common goal and with code on our sides, how far you can actually go.
Absolutely.
Like you can see on this calculator with negative amounts of buyers, we can still change each other's lives. With negative, it's crazy.
It is, man. It's like makes my cognitive dissonance flare up. Like this,
and drop the X's on the blockchain a little bit. Like some people might think that's too drastic. Get it to like 100 X's, because I think you're at like 250 or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I set everything back, by the way, to where we were before. Let me get that blockchain X's. Let's see, to 100X. So we just got to change the LP growth after that. So we're not going to be 25%. We're going to be 26%. Okay. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. And do you want to know the price at the end of year 10 years?
What sell pressure are we at?
101%.
And what negative amount of net pressure is that?
Oh, negative $5.32 million.
Okay. Yeah. So guys, this is pretty much in the next 10 years organically. This isn't including the code buybacks, because code buybacks can't be sold. Pretty much the users sell $5 million more than we bring in organically.
Yep. Okay.
And what do we still end up at?
After 10 years, 32 cents, 4,000X.
Okay, bump up the sell pressure. Put it to 103 and let us know what that's at. I think that's like probably 15 million of sell pressure.
32. And you said 105?
I said 103, but
yeah, 103.
Work our way up.
Yeah, it's $16 million in sell pressure. I mean, yeah, 103%, $16 million negative growth. It's not 32 cents, but 26 cents.
Banana.
Yeah, we must have disconnected for a second.
How many X's are you at there?
3,000.
Okay, let's bump it to 5. 105. It's probably 25 mil of sell pressure.
Yep. 2300x.
Okay, go to 110. Let's do 110% sell pressure. Probably close to a 50 mil of sell pressure, negative 50 mil.
110% sell pressure, negative 53 million. At the end of 10 years, 8.5 cents, 1000x. Are you there? 1000x after 10 years. I'm speechless, man. I don't know what to say. This is just so mind-numbing. To think that you could buy a bag of pTGC and hodl it for 10 years. If you buy 1 million pTGCs, I'd bet $1,000 right now. If I bought 1 million pTGC right now, at the end of 10 years, it's going to at least 1000x. 1000x, $1,000. No, 1 million pTGC right now is $100. At the end of 10 years, that's going to be $10,000. Who wouldn't hodl $100 for 10 years if it turned into $10,000? Because these are modest settings. Zen, are you back? I think we must have lost him altogether. Zen, can you hear me? Maybe I'm rugged. I'm going to drop out and come back in. Yes, I did. I did have technical issues. Okay. I want to submit those technical issues. Can you see, guys, how this is just so... I don't know what to say, man. Why aren't people, won't more people take a position in this thing? Wait a second. Am I not in this one? Okay, there we go. I guess I got rugged that time. Zen, are you there? No, we lost him. Is it time to shut down Spaces? Invited you. Oh, to co-host. Yeah, respond. Okay. Zen, are you there? He's the host. I'm the co-host. My mic is on. Can you hear me? Anybody hear me? Yeah, we lost the Spaces. Really, George? I appreciate that, man. Thanks for letting me know, because I always appreciate hearing from people that, bought pTGC or encouraged to hodl because of my streams. I mean, I believe in this ecosystem with my whole heart, man. It's very, very exciting. Yep, agreed. Okay, we're calling it. Sometimes yeah, nobody was hearing him. Okay, that's it. Wow, guys, go play around with that calculator. Go have some fun. You guys probably understood more about that than I did. Go have fun, guys. Have a Saturday, have a weekend. Make sure you got your bags packed. I'm sure everybody here does. But after hearing that, it's like somebody wants to go buy more pTGC because they hear about that. Great. Who are you buying it for? I mean, because if you already have your pTGC bag, I honestly do not feel like I need to go buy more. Because with those numbers, all I got to do is wait. Now, you can cut down the wait time by increasing your bag. I will admit that. But everybody that holds $1 million or more, they're going to win, baby. If you hold a dolphin position, 29 million, you're going to win times 29. That's not financial advice. That's just a prairie banana. But wow. Go PulseChain. Go PulseChain. Guys, have a great day. Appreciate every one of you. See y'all later.